talk with every sip and laugh. Coffee's the fuel, martini's the craft. Conversation swirling in the cool night air. Talk the walk, we're going.
Where's our applause? Alan. Oh, I was going to ask if you had your martini glass. What have you got there?
Well, I have this is Jameson Black Barrel Reserve. I couldn't find a martini glass, but I like Jameson's, and I found this special, very special whiskey. So here's to you.
Cheers to you. And one day I will have a whiskey or a martini on this call, and we'll do an inverse time zone one. It'll be very interesting. I wonder if I'll be like, if I'll be more like you in the afternoon, and you can be more like me in the morning.
Does that mean I have to drink coffee?
Yeah. Do you drink coffee?
I have 1 cup in the morning. That's what I do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I usually drink one, sometimes a second if I really need it. But if I have a coffee after 11 a.m., it's game over for the evening. I just can't go to sleep.
Caffeine doesn't bother me, but I'm not, coffee in the 1 cup in the morning is fine. I use a Keurig. It's the only thing I can operate. And the Keurig saved my life. I mean, because you just drop the thing in and you're done.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's interesting because as Australians, when we travel to the US, we're so used to having a kettle, right, where we heat up our hot water. And in many of the hotels in the US, you don't get a kettle.
No kettle.
I know. Okay. It's bizarre. Maybe that's our sort of British colonialism coming in here, but you need a kettle. It's mandatory. But yeah, I've got many friends that pack their own. Alan, you're joining us from somewhere very different today. Where are you?
We are in Nantucket for a couple of weeks at a house on the beach, which we do every single year for 30 years plus now. We came up a week ago, stayed a little inn, and now we're in the house. And my daughter will join us this weekend with her family. So it's wonderful.
And it looks beautiful. I mean, we can see some greenery in the background, but there's a beach not far from where you are.
I've been in right next to me.
Oh, wonderful. Oh gosh, what a life. It's winter in Australia, not too bad though. I'm in Brisbane. Let us know if you're joining us live or even if you're watching the replay, where are you joining us from? Now, Alan, today's conversation is really around decision-making. I mean, we are decision-making machines. It's pretty much all we do as humans. You suggested this topic. What prompted that?
Well, I think people make lousy decisions. And if you don't believe that, if you look at HBO Max, it was HBO Max streaming, then it became Max, then they went back to HBO Max, and then Max, back and forth. This cost about $10 million. A succession of stupid decisions. And part of the problem here is that decisions are both emotional and logical. We have to understand there's a place for each. But the bigger problem is that people make binary decisions. And they say, do you want to go to the shore or to the mountains? Instead of saying, where should we go on vacation? Should you go to this school or that school? Instead of what's the best school for you? And so by asking why we're trying to make the decision, we broaden the options. And so a decision has three aspects. It has objectives, and objectives are results and resources. So you want to minimize the resources that go into a decision, but maximize the results, okay? The second are alternatives. What are the options you consider?
Yeah.
So you should never make a binary decision, yes or no, if you can help it. And then the third are risks. And people overlook risks entirely. They jump on the bandwagon. And risks have probability and seriousness. And so you want to reduce the probability, but ameliorate the seriousness if it does occur. And in that last, 40 seconds, I've just described a very key critical thinking skill.
You really have. And we could really just talk about those three things for the rest of the live stream. But I do have some other questions for you. But of course, we're going to have to focus on this. I kind of giggled when you talked about minimizing risk. Sometimes we don't even want to think about the risk. Like we don't even want to go there. We don't even want to open that up because we just want to do the thing that we want to do. You mentioned just before that decisions are either emotional or logical. I feel like, so many are emotional, but like you say, we justify it with logic sort of after the fact. We know what we want to do, but we're going to find data that validates what we want to do.
Well, what we have to get used to is they should be both. In other words, in a business sense, a buyer says to you, look, I need my teams to cooperate better. I need to figure out a way that I don't have to play referee every week. I hate it. And so what you have here is a legitimate business decision to make. How can the teams better collaborate? But also the emotional thing is, I don't want to be referee. I hate it. So we have to accommodate those things. And in selling professional services, the more you meet the buyer's personal objectives, the more likely you are to be accepted for the business objectives.
Yeah, and that was a really important learning for me. It's not only just about the measurable, quantifiable outcomes. It's really around: am I getting better sleep at night? Is there less? Am I playing less of that referee role? Let's talk about that. Minimize the resources and maximize the results. When you talk about resources, what do you mean?
Well, let's say we're buying a car, and we say, okay, look, I can spend $100,000 on a car. That's my maximum budget. So that's a must. But I'd like to get one for less that also meets my other objectives. I'd like to have nice performance, I'd like to have some storage, or whatever it happens to be. So uh, you want to minimize the amount you put into. If I can find that car for 75,000, that's great, right? Or if I can find for the 100,000 even a better car, that's great. The thing is, though, just like in business, the return on investment is the margin. The higher the revenue, the lower the cost. We're talking about margin here the same way, and that is that I need to get as many results as I can while conserving as many resources as I
Yes.
can, and that's key because resources will always be limited.
Yeah. Yeah.
And resources are often priorities, time and money. So we don't look at it that way. And the thing about risk, which you raised, is very, very true. And that is that not only do people fail to consider risk because they're so eager to get someplace, but a lot of times they don't do anything because they're so afraid of risk.
Yes. It's funny because like I feel like I'm on the side, whereas like I don't want to even see the risk. I just want to jump in, and I know I kind of maybe will trust that I'll figure it out, or it won't happen. I just have this like kind of rose colored glasses. But there's that continuum. Then there's other people that are just on the other complete side, and they're like, they see every risk and they kind of over engineer what's going to happen, and they really get caught. I guess it's get caught in that how am I going to do this trap before they've even started. It's just playing in this hypothetical land. What tips do you have for those people?
Well, you have to be realistic. You have to say, look, well, I mean, we tend to either over exaggerate or under assess risk instead of looking at it objectively. And the way you look at risk is, what's the probability it's going to happen, and how can I reduce it? What's the seriousness if it does occur? That's like my upside
Okay.
downside equation we've
Yeah.
talked about in the past. And the issue here is, let's just say your decision is, should I write something? What should I write? Should I write something? And the risk is that people will critique you, or they'll say it's no good. So what? I mean, there's a probability that will happen because, especially on the internet, people are always sniping because they're basically inadequate, and that's why they snipe at others. But it's not going to hurt you. It's not going to ruin your reputation. And so you have to ignore these things. And you also have to be careful to ask the right question. Very quickly, I'll tell you this story. I have a client that's been with me for, I don't know, 12 years as an advisory client. And the question I found out that she asks when a potential customer, a prospect, comes to her is, I wonder if I can help them. Can I help them? The trouble with that question is the answer is always yes. And so she gets into some business arrangements which are unfavorable, or she works with some buyers who are awful. The question I ask is different when I meet someone. And what I ask is, what's in it for me? And you might think that's very selfish, but what I'm saying is, will I learn? Will I grow? Will I make an adequate amount of money? Will I like doing this? What's in it for me? Because if none of those things exist, then it's not what I'm doing. I don't care what the money is. So we have to be careful in making decisions, what questions we're asking and what risks we're
Such a
looking
good
at.
question. What's in it for I was even thinking last night, I haven't committed to this thing. It's a while away, but they're like this. Anyway, I'm not going to get into the detail. I might be watching this on live stream, but basically like, hey, can you do this for? And I'm like, I was just thinking overnight, like, there's nothing really in it for me. It would be a free webinar. It's not really my target audience. It's content that it's like from 4 or 5 years ago, I'm not personally interested in anymore. So I actually might go back to them, maybe either by sharing a different topic or just being, I think you're right around that, because we can often spin our wheels doing this sort of stuff on autopilot.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. Can you recall easily a decision you made that went tremendously wrong, and you were sure it was the best decision, but you went over the cliff?
I'm trying to think. Yes. Do I want to share it on the call? I mean, like if I've got work examples and I can, of course.
Well, no, you don't have to get the content. I was going to ask you, why you think it happened. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't
I
have to
think it's
reveal the
because of
content.
that. I guess I have I have a positivity bias that everything's going to be great, but at the same moment, Alan, there's like these red flags that would come up that I knew, but I'm just like, no, we'll deal with that. That'll be fine. And I felt the red flags and I knew that they were there, but I kind of discarded it because the money's good. It's lucrative. I don't know, all these things that emerge.
Sure. Sure. So do we let things get in our
Mm,
way from when we're trying to make sound decisions? Sometimes, for example, we listen to the
yeah,
wrong people. Sometimes we get bad advice. Sometimes conditions have changed we don't realize. I mean, there are a lot of
yeah,
good reasons for it. But the key is to learn what happened and why so you don't repeat the same process
yeah.
errors, Tom here
Tim,
says, I don't know, a single successful person hasn't taken a number of significant risks over the course of their careers. Likewise, risk avoidance is the common denominator for those who are stuck, particularly people in their 40s. Now, I think that he's exactly right that if you look at people who are successful, they've all taken risks. Fred Smith starting FedEx, or anybody who starts, their own dramatic business, Steve Jobs with Apple or whatever. And I also think that I don't know that this is generational, but I think the kinds of risks have changed
mm,
generationally. I think with the advent of the internet and Gen X, Y, Z, whatever we're up to, uh, that there's a much greater chance of being publicly
yes,
ridiculed, for example.
yes,
I think there's a
yeah,
much better chance that you are somehow recorded, uh, you know, and so there are more risks in decision making today. People know instantly what's happened, but it doesn't mean that you should shy away from that. You simply have to be aware of the kind of risks we're
that's right.
facing.
And yeah, shout out to Tim. Tim and I were working together in Melbourne this week. So lovely to have you here on the live stream, Tim. I mean, you talked about the risk and how I guess it can be amplified. The example is the Coldplay example, right? Of last week. Just how quickly that just blew up on the internet. So, um,
Well, keep in mind in
yeah.
terms of risk now, Coldplay said to the audience, "We're going to have cameras on you, and you're going to be on the jumbotron." Could happen next.
Oh, they did that.
They made that announcement. And so now you're taking a risk if you decide, well, it's who will see us? Well, things happen,
Yeah.
and then they start going downhill rapidly. So I think that we're all adults and we have to make our own judgment about risk. And some of us are more risk tolerant than others, but there comes a point where risk does become just excessive. Now, here's the other. Jen says, being too optimistic is my
Yes.
problem.
Yeah. Jan and I are the same person pretty much. I think that's good. Don't you think that's a good attribute? Being a bit too of course we're aware, we're aware, but we're like, that wouldn't happen to us. Like, surely you have to have a bit of optimism.
Well, I'm a very
Otherwise,
optimistic guy, but I'm extremely optimistic. But what happens is, if you want to be optimistic and successful,
yeah.
you have to at least acknowledge the fact that some things might happen to you because there are risks attendant to every decision we make. They might be minor, might be minuscule, but they might be important. So every decision we make involves some kind of risk.
Mm.
And you go see a client, you have to make decisions about what you're going to wear to that particular client. It might seem insignificant, but it might not be.
Mm. Well, even cutting my hair, right? That's a bit of a risk to take. It was a big decision to make in the moment. He's like, well, how do you feel about this? I only had maybe a minute and I was like, just do it. My optimism's like, it will grow anyway.
Well, now I don't believe in gender differences, but I would say that that's a bigger risk for a woman than a man.
It is. It is. It is in that situation. Hey, I want to go back to your original point around this. You said the problem is a lot of the time when we ask the question, we're asking a question which has a binary, like, is it yes or no? Is it this or that? And so I guess what I'm hearing from you is when you're receiving a question like that, is not to default and respond it. It's to maybe zoom out and maybe go up a level and open up the question.
Yeah. So a CEO says to me, which of these two vice presidents would be my best successor? And I'd say, well, why are you making this decision? And he says, well, I'm probably going to retire within 5 years. I said, well, that's a pretty long runway. Why don't we decide what the best source for your successor is? And that's a different equation. Now you look outside. And the social proof of this is years ago when IBM was in desperate trouble. They had continued to promote IBMers to the top job. And a guy named John Akers, was fired as CEO. And for the first time, the IBM board asked a different question. They said, where will we find the best possible candidate to be CEO? And instead of looking farther down in the ranks, they got Lou Gerstner, who was the CEO of Nabisco, a food company, which was unheard of.
Mm.
And Gerstner saved them. I mean, he actually saved IBM. So by broadening the decision, we broaden the chances for our success.
Yeah. Um, I think that's really powerful, like reframing the question. I don't know if you've noticed this recently. I mean, I've read articles around this, and maybe sometimes I've even been guilty of doing it myself. A lot of us now, I don't do it. It's like for minor things. What we're finding is people are outsourcing their decisions to AI. They're going into Chat GPT and saying, should I do this? What's your commentary on that?
Well, my commentary is that AI is a good tool to use here if you use it to find you options. So, for example, you say, I've decided to do this. What are my best options for finding something to fulfill it? That's okay. But the decision making itself has to have your personal insights, your
Mm,
personal nuance to it. And I think that it is a abdication when you start to go to AI and say, here's my decision. What do you think?
yeah,
Because I said it's emotional and logical. AI can handle the logic to some extent, but it can't handle the emotional.
no,
You
no,
know,
no.
no, it's not sitting in the leather seat driving, turning the wheel.
That's right. And it's kind of also, I kind of liken it to sometimes when I'm making a decision, like you flip a coin. But the only reason I do that is not because I'll go with whatever the coin says. It's if, say, yes is heads and heads shows, and I'm like, oh, I didn't want to do that. It immediately tells me what I actually wanted to do. Like if I reject what the coin said, have you, that's normal behavior.
That's a little woo-woo, Leanne. I don't know
No, no, I'm
about
not going to
that.
follow the coin. I'm just going to be like, am I happy with what the coin says? And if so, then it's like, okay, that's the right decision. And if not, then I will do the other thing.
Well, that's like saying I'm going to play Wordle, and if I get the word before the fourth guess, I'll allow myself to play golf today. I mean, people think like that, like it's a reward. Uh, there's a
People do
difference
think
between,
like that, though. You're right.
well, yeah, but that
They
doesn't mean
do.
it's the thing to do. Oh, what you said to open up is correct. We make, 1,000 decisions every day, and
Yep.
most of them, by the way, are in unconscious competency.
Yes.
They're not in conscious competency. And one of the things we have to do is decide when a decision should be yanked back to conscious competency. So when you're driving that
Mm.
car, you're turning the wheel to stay in the lane. That's unconscious competency. But when you're looking for a candidate for a job, you better be in conscious competency.
Well, I think it's back to what you've mentioned many times on these episodes. It's like who's setting the metrics. And I think when you work in an organization, you're just used to, I have to work here. My goal is to climb the career ladder because that's what everyone is doing. And I remember actually at the moment where it actually hit me when I walked in to work one morning. I'm like, I don't want this. And my whole life I'd been thinking about life was all about, getting the next notch on that ladder. So yeah, you're right around that. Hey, I think a lot of this is around, the risk and not taking and not making the decision is because we have a lack. We don't really trust our own judgment, right? So how do we build trust?
I've written about this a lot. It's in about 5 or 6 of my books, and the key here is resilience. I mean, leaders today, you on LinkedIn, there's 47 lists and charts and diagrams for leadership. None of those people have ever led anything. I have. And you need two attributes today for leadership. You need resilience, you need agility. And resilience is about bouncing forward. So if you want to trust your own judgment, you can't have either or success or failure. You have to say, I've made this decision and I'm going to make it work. I might face some things I didn't think about. I might get hit with some obstacles I didn't anticipate, but I am going to be resilient, deal with them, and bounce forward. And so if you have the agility to do that, you have the self-confidence to do that, that's what it's all about.
Mm,
Uh, and I think what you said is exactly correct. And that is people refrain from making decisions that are in their best interest because they don't trust themselves.
yeah.
And so out they go. And I'll tell you one more thing. When I was doing just about exclusively corporate work, 80% of my advisory work with large organizations was validating what they had decided to do. They needed an outsider who didn't have a corner office, who wasn't looking for a bonus, to validate and say, you're okay, don't worry about it.
I find that it's so true. It's 80%. Like, and not even with clients, like even with friends when you're having a coffee and they're like, "Oh, hey, I'm thinking about this." I feel like if you're already thinking about it, you've kind of made the decision. You just want someone else just to be like, "Yeah, why not go for it?" Um, yeah, it's fascinating. Dee Dee's says, "I made Alan laugh about
You did
my."
indeed. You did indeed.
Great to see you, Dee Dee. Hey, um, so what is your? Do you have a framework when you're making a big business or life decision? Is there like a framework that you personally work through? Like, how do you balance your emotion and the logic as well?
Well, I used to work for a company in Princeton, and I wound up running North America and Asia and Latin America and so forth. It was a critical thinking skills company. And the decision process was you started with a decision that was a broad decision statement, not binary.
Yes.
You examined what results you really wanted and you separated them into musts. In other words, if I don't have the must, the decision fails. And then wants, these are desirable, but and by the way, the heart of negotiating is giving away wants but never giving away a must, right? And then you would look at the options available from experience, from research, others' opinions, and then you'd look at risk and you decide what was the highest value option with tolerable risk. And I didn't say lowest risk, tolerable. So, for
Yep.
example, a bank making a decision would try to choose minimum risk, but an advertising firm making a decision might say we could take a lot of risk here because we're in that kind of business.
Mm.
That's how you make decisions, or you just extract a part of that and you say, we're going to do this. I know that because we've done it before. Let me look at the risks this year. And you just take out a part of it.
Yeah, okay, that's a nice little framework that not really a little framework. It just seems like these critical thinking skills not only make you a great consultant, but make you, I guess, just better at making decisions in every aspect of your life. Jan says he is dialing in from Portugal. Great to have you here. Tim's follow-up. The flip side of risk is luck. We underestimate the role of luck, I believe. I agree. Postal code bingo, for example, where you happen to be born is a huge success factor. You owe it to your luck to take some risk. And I think Tim, like, 'cause I think that I'm a lucky person. And I think that maybe relates that optimism bias that I have. But I definitely, yeah, very lucky. What do you think about luck?
Well, first, let me say to Jan that we're going to be in Portugal in April, in Porto and Lisbon. So, um, look, luck is the residue of design. A guy named Branch Rickey said that. The harder I work, the luckier I get. I was born in the most congested city in the United States, in New Jersey. I think it still is 60,000 people in a square mile, inner city. I was born poor, and that's where I was born. But I think the key is you make the best of it. I think the key is that a lot of people who are born to attractive zip codes and wealthy parents make a mess of their lives. So everything is about what you do about it. I don't believe in predestination. I don't believe in a sort of a Calvinistic, fated attempt to life. And I think I am an optimist, and anybody can make it if they have the opportunity. If they're not discriminated against, if they have the
Yeah,
opportunity, and you have to work hard. And then the harder you work, the luckier you get. I think that's how it works.
I think so too. I think so too. Um, the something that I spoke about on my, because I've got a daily podcast that I've again, this was so my daily podcast this year. I saw a client recently and he's like, "Are you still doing that?" I said, "Yeah, that was just a decision I made." And I'm like, it was the right decision, snap moment. But I'm actually really happy that I'm doing it because I guess what I'm doing, Alan, with this podcast is I'm seeing what's happening in every day and I'm trying to sort of create lessons and form meaning. So it's helpful in terms of it's training my brain that way. Um, but there was an episode I did where I scheduled an Uber like on Monday morning, and the scheduled Uber, then the driver just decided to cancel. And it's like, okay, what do I do now? Do I what and there's something anyway, long story short, it reminded me of an executive assistant, and she's like, "Leanne, sometimes instead of getting involved, just hang back a little bit and you find that things kind of resolve themselves." I call it strategic pausing. What do you think about that? It's like actually not making a decision is okay sometimes. Because I feel like Alan, you're someone that will just make decisions like and move along.
Well, it depends what the decision is. I love the phrase strategic pausing. I've never heard that in my life. But I'll tell you this. One of the keys to this resilience I talked about and agility is this. If you've got an important call in the morning and you've scheduled an Uber, the next thing you should do is have a backup plan.
Mm.
That's what you do when you're having to make important decisions. You
Yeah.
know, your plane is late or there's a mechanical problem. You forget to take an important piece of information. You need a backup plan all the time.
Mm.
And so you have to be aware of what that is. I do think, well, I'll give you something that the doctors always tell me, you know, when I'm going for my regular checkups and I say, you know, I've got this thing. The doctor will say to me, how long have you had the thing? I'd say, you know, 2 days. He says, let me know if it's still there in 2 weeks. And they're not
Oh.
interested in anything short term. You know, and my dermatologist thinks I'm a complete hypochondriac. And I went to see him and I said, listen, I got this thing on my leg. He says, I don't think that's anything. How long have you had it? I said, I saw it yesterday. He said to me, never make an appointment with me again unless you have something that's 2 weeks old and it's crusting over and it looks like it's going to take over your body. So,
Really?
yeah, he was really upset with me. So sometimes my point is, if you let things go, just don't let them go too long. You know, don't let them go until they do take over your body.
Yeah.
A quick thing here. Um, LinkedIn user, see the book that Malcolm Gladwell and I wrote together. It's called Life Story. Okay, back to
No, that what didn't who did you write Life Storming with? That wasn't Malcolm Gladwell. Who was it?
oh no, Marshall Goldsmith. I
Yes.
beg your pardon. Thank you. Well,
I was like, wow, you've written a book with Malcolm Glad. I love Malcolm
yeah,
Gladwell. I
I know
mean,
Malcolm
Marshall
Gladwell.
Smith.
Yes, he'd be very happy. I did not write that book. I did not correct. I wrote with Marshall Goldsmith. I'm sorry. I beg your pardon. Please don't say anything on LinkedIn.
Life Storming is a fantastic book. So yeah, highly recommend. Jan lives in Algarve near Faro. If you need anything here during travel, please let me know. So you probably want
Appreciate
some
that.
restaurant tips, I'd imagine, Alan.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
As we get closer, I'll get in touch. We got great hotels in Porto and then in Lisbon. Part of it's business and most of it's play.
Ah, well, I think your life is like you enjoy what you do, right?
Yeah.
So, and so do I, and I think it's a really great way to live. Um, Final question for you, unless we have any other comments come through. But what I mean, this whole topic was really around how to make the right decision every time. Pretty provocative, you know. It's an Alan type of session to run. What does the right decision really mean? Is it the right decision in the moment? Is it only in hindsight that you get to reflect on that? How do you know?
That's a really great question. I mean, a lot of times we think we made the right decision, and 6 months later we think it was the wrong decision,
Yeah.
or vice versa. And so I would say this in reaction to your question. I would say to you that it's the right decision in one of two instances. You've helped improve a situation, yours, someone else's, a circumstance, but you've helped improve the situation. That's the right decision. I
Yeah.
think the second thing is you've learned something. And so just like
Okay.
not making a successful sales call, if you learn something, I think it's still successful. So if you learn something from the decision and you'll be better next time, that's okay too.
Oh, fantastic. I like that. Thank you. Thank you for giving that a go. Um, and it's funny sometimes I think, have I learned? Because like sometimes you learn from something, but then you kind of repeat the same mistake. And so it's like, did I actually learn from that? No. I just got awareness on it. Fascinating. We could talk a long time about this. Jan says, Four Decisions, The Art of Strategic Incompletion by Steve Jobs. Cool. Thanks for those book tips. It's lovely. And really great to have you here. Alan, I know you're on Nantucket vacay, so we'll let you go to your dinner reservation. But thank you all for
Yeah,
joining us today. And no doubt we'll run one of these in a couple of weeks. Just stay tuned to LinkedIn for that.
yeah.
And yeah, cheers to good decision making, Alan.
Thank you all for being here. Cheers.